See, this is just a great area for hens. Just look right around the base of these oak trees. You can find them growing on pretty small oaks, but generally these bigger, older oaks are the ones you want to focus on. I'll just walk through like this and walk right around the base of each tree because they blend in pretty good. You'd be surprised. And these mushrooms can get real big, bigger than a basketball, but they tend to blend in pretty well, even from just 20 or 30 feet away. So I try to just meander through the woods and walk up to each big oak and just kind of look around it. And as I go, I look back and scope out the oaks that I've already passed, because sometimes when you approach it from a different angle, they'll stand out better for some reason too. Pretty easy mushroom to find though, but they can hide on you. I think that's just a trick I learned hunting morels, and I kind of use it for everything now. Approach the tree and stuff from a different angle. Take a good look around. Make sure I didn't miss something. This works good for hunting too, because this is how you hunt. You look between the trees, not at them. You can hopefully you can kind of get a feel for that. You need to be able to look between the trees. And when I'm squirrel hunting, I'll do the same thing. A lot of days the squirrels will be on the ground, especially if it's windy, but if they're up in the trees, I'll just scan the tree and I'll look at all the branches that stick out from that tree, and a lot of times those squirrels will just be sitting right in the crook of that branch. I'm not looking so much at the tree itself as I'm looking at the outline of the tree and trying to see like a little bulge or a little piece of tail sticking out or any little sign that it might be a squirrel. At least that's what works for me. Seems to work pretty good. A lot of times the woods is pretty thick, and unless you can kind of, you know, avoid looking directly at the trees, you end up missing a lot of stuff. You have to be able to look through the trees. But you also have to be able to listen. And I can hear a squirrel running around on the ground right over there. But I'm not hunting today, so it's kind of hard to turn off the hunter's instinct though. You know, when you're out in the woods, if you're a hunter, you think about these things regardless. Especially after you hunt for a long time, you know, it kind of just becomes instinct. It's not like you're actually thinking about it. It's just what you do in your head because you're so used to doing it. You can't really turn it off. I'm gonna go down this ridge, get back down to the bottom where there's maybe a little more moisture, and pick up the hunt for the hens. I've already did a bunch of videos on this. I did one video just for this plant. It's a small shrub, barberry. Gets unique leaves and little red berries that hang on into the winter, and it grows in the woods just like this. It's real easy to spot, but it's a very important plant to know because it's antibacterial. The berries, the root, and the inner bark. The root and the inner bark, it's almost like a yellow dye. It actually, I believe, if I recall correctly, it is a natural dye number 7, I believe. But the important feature is that it's antibacterial and it can be used as an antibiotic. Plus it has a whole range of medicinal uses. So if there's a plant that's medicinal that you want to become familiar with, this really should be on the top of the list, because it's hard to find antibacterial and antibiotic compounds in the woods, and this is a very abundant plant that provides that for you. So, you know, wide range all over the US and Canada and probably throughout the world. I know there's a Japanese version because a lot of ours is it's a non-native species here in America, but there's a Canadian version, Japanese version, so you should be able to find it where you're at, and it's a good plant to know. I've already said that 3 times now, I think. But, you know, with these medicinal plants, it's easy to get distracted on plants that really don't provide a whole lot of benefit. Plantain is a good plant, but it's really not all that great compared to something like barberry, which is a true antibiotic that could save your life if you get an infection or a bad fungus or something, which is very possible. You know, if you're out in the bush and you get poked by a thorn or something, it's easy for an infection to set in. So spice bush. Now this plant will get red berries on it too, but I don't see the berries right now. But it's pretty easy to identify by these toothless ovate leaves with a pointed tip, because if you crush them up and smell them, they have a citrus smell, and you can take those and the twigs and stuff and make tea with it. It's a medicinal plant, but it also is good just to make tea. I've yet to make any tea with it, but I'm seriously considering it because it really smells good. I did another video on that. It might be up. I'm not sure if I posted it yet, but it's called the Northern Spice Bush. Another really abundant plant that grows all over. Medicinal, and you can use it for a tea. And right here is another one, which is somewhat similar actually. This is sassafras. I noticed a lot of times you don't get that citrus smell from the leaves of the sassafras, but if you were to pop a twig off there, you would probably smell it. Another easy way to identify this sassafras, not always, but a lot of times when you want to harvest this, you're going after the root typically, and you're going to be doing it in the winter when the leaves aren't on the plant. So even though these are very distinct leaves, I've already did a video on this plant. It's in that Wild Edibles of August series of videos if you want to see it. But the leaf shape is very distinct, but when it comes time to harvest this, there aren't going to be any leaves, but the bark is sometimes green. So you'll see these little shrubs in the woods with green bark, and that'll be a cue that it might be sassafras. Getting my plants mixed up and running into too many at once. I almost called it spice bush. That log's nice and wide, but it's all punky. I was worried it was gonna cave in with me. See what's left to it. But if you want a nice smoky fire, that would be a good thing to use right there. All that punky wood won't really burn, it'll just sit there and smoke. Smoking food, making a smoke signal, keeping bugs away. A lot of good reasons to want a smoky fire. I like walking on these fallen trees because it makes walking through the woods a lot easier sometimes. And also, you know, it just keeps you on your toes. Plus, it's fun. If those trees are wet though, you better be careful because they can get real slippery, especially if they're covered with moss. And especially if you're a guy, you don't want to be falling with a big old tree between your legs. It doesn't feel very good. Well, here's a tip for you beginner deer hunters. Right over there is a small, I don't know if that's called a swale or what, but it's just an open wet area in amongst this big forest of oaks and hardwoods. And when you're out deer hunting, especially in an open woods, it's kind of hard to find where the deer are because they could be anywhere. But because there's that swampy section right there, those deer are coming right along the edge. It kind of funnels them, brings them in tight, and they all come right around the edge of that swamp, right up through here. And I can tell because there's a lot of these leaves have been moved away and the ground looks very uneven, and that's because it's deer hoof prints that are making that. And if you look close, you can see where the leaves have been shoved down into the mud. That's a deer hoof print. Even though I can't see the actual outline of the hoof, just based on the size and just some general knowledge of the woods, I know that that's a deer footprint. So they're coming right through here. You could set up in any one of these oak trees, pick one where you got a bit of a view, and catch those deer cutting around that swamp. Well guys, I've walked all through this whole woods off trail and haven't found a single hen yet. But I started getting over here and I noticed the woods was getting lighter, more light was coming through, so I figured I was probably getting close to the swamp or the river. And also you can kind of see there's a gradual slope that leads down. But since I'm here, I think I'll head down here by the edge and see if I can't find another good wild edible that's in season right now. Because I could use a little pick-me-up. Oh yeah, it's looking like I might. It helps to know where these different plants grow. And this one likes to be down near the water or even right in the swamp. They're probably all over in that swamp right there. But this is, let me get on the other side of it so the sun's not blinding the camera.